Lesson 1. In this lesson, we're going to be talking all about your target audience, who your book is for. And trust me, this is where most authors fail. We see that every day at Reedsy. We ask them, who's your book for? And they answer, it's for women aged 30 to 55. Or they say, oh, it's for everyone. Or sometimes it's for YA readers. Now, these are all audiences, if you want, but they're way too broad. Not all YA readers are going to buy your book, even if it's YA. Not all women between the ages of 30 and 55 are going to buy your book, even if it's ideally for them. And also, by having such a broad audience, when times come to market your book, you won't know where to start. Because if you have to spread the word about your book to all the women aged 30 to 55, I mean, where do you start? So in this lesson, we're going to be talking about how to identify the smallest target audience possible so that you know exactly the perfect reader for your book, the one that's going to be most interested in your book, and you can start targeting them. And then they'll spread word of mouth to other people interested in your book. So the best way to do that, actually, is to start where readers buy books, and that's Amazon. So now I'm going to show you how you can use Amazon categories and keywords to kind of pinpoint where you want to place your book on Amazon, and that's going to tell you a lot about the people you want to target.
So the first thing I want you to do is go to amazon.com and to the Kindle store. So here we're on amazon.com, I click on Kindle store, I hit search, then I go to Kindle eBooks, and here I am on the Kindle ebook store where readers actually go to buy ebooks. Now we're going to go a lot deeper into Amazon categories and keywords and metadata and how to optimize all that in a future lesson. However, I found that when authors start thinking about target market and the genre, it really helps to already start taking a look at Amazon categories. So I'm going to use again that example of the author who's written a YA book and who tells me, my target market is YA readers. Well, YA readers, there are millions of them in the world, and it's really hard to start targeting them. It's too broad of an audience to start your marketing. So to narrow it down, you can use Amazon categories. So I'm going to go here on the left. I've got teen and young adult. I'm going to say, okay, I've written a YA book, so my book should be placed in there. Now, if you keep looking on the left, you'll see that Amazon suggests a bunch of subcategories. So what I want you to do with your book is play with those subcategories until you find the lowest level subgenre in which your book could fit. So continuing with my example, I want you to think, okay, is it more of a horror YA, or are there elements of humor or LGBT? Or maybe it's a fantasy, YA fantasy. So I'm going to click on science fiction and fantasy, then fantasy, and Amazon suggests even more possible subgenres. So it's a YA fantasy, but is it more coming of age or epic, which are similar, or is it more contemporary or paranormal and urban? Okay, let's say it's more urban fantasy, so you click on urban fantasy. And finally, you get to a stage where Amazon doesn't suggest more subgenres. So you found really the lowest level, the lowest level niche on Amazon where you could place your book. And that's, urban fantasy is still a big category, and don't get me wrong, but it's niche enough for you to consider it a target audience, a target genre. Now, if you aren't able to find a niche you're comfortable with, then there might be a problem with your book, to be perfectly honest. So I get a lot of cases where authors tell me, well, yeah, I've written an urban fantasy, but it's got a lot of elements of like romance and thriller and erotica. And if you're in that case where you're blending a lot of different genres, what I really, really recommend you to do is buy all the bestsellers in the category you feel your book could be placed in. Read those books and see if they've got all the elements that you have in your book. If they don't, then it means that it's probably not the right category for you. And if you aren't able to find a proper niche where your book could fit with the other bestsellers in terms of its content and its genre tropes, then I'd say it's not worth publishing your book. You need to rework it, ideally hire an editor who's specialized in that kind of books, in that kind of genre, and remove the things, the tropes that don't belong in the genre you want to place your book in. Because otherwise you're going to try to sell a book to a target market that's not going to like the book, and you're just like doomed before you even started your marketing. Now, 2 little tricks that I want to give you to make the search for you easier. If you can describe your genre with a keyword, then just put that keyword in here and look at the categories that show up. For example, if you've written a blend of Western and fantasy that actually exists as a genre, it's Weird West. So you're gonna type in Weird West and you're gonna search actually in the Kindle store. I'm gonna go Kindle store and I'm gonna search for Weird West. I'm gonna see what shows up. Amazon is gonna show up a bunch of books that use the keyword Weird West, and it's gonna show here on the left the different categories these books have been placed in. So I see anthologies, short stories, steampunk, which is a type of Weird West, paranormal and urban, again, Western romance. So there's no Western fantasy category on Amazon, but there's a Western romance. So if there's a lot of romance in your book, you might place your book in there. Another trick, for example, I want to see, okay, this book looks similar to what I want to publish. So I click on it and I can scroll down to here to see which categories it shows up in. So it shows up in horror, genre fiction, Western's horror. So again, there's no Western fantasy, but if there are elements of horror in your Western, then you can place it Western horror. Western science fiction, again, there's no Western fantasy, there's Western science fiction, which is next to it. And it also shows up in steampunk. So this is kind of a quick way to find all the different categories you could place your book in.
So now hopefully you have a better idea of where you want to have your book on Amazon. Another good way to pinpoint your target audience is to use a technique called the Proto persona. So the Proto persona is going as narrow as possible into your target market and defining one person. For example, if I've written, let's say a thriller, espionage thriller, I'm gonna say something like, this book is for Jack. Jack is 45, married, lives in the UK, north of England, and he's a big fan of all the Jack Reacher books. Has watched all the espionage and thriller series on Netflix, and goes to the gym thrice a week, and hangs out on a bunch of Facebook groups dedicated to thrillers, and follows also Stephen King on Facebook. So you give a bunch of attributes to that reader. You create a fake persona, Proto persona, who you think is going to be the perfect target for your book. That person is like the one person on earth who's going to love your book the most, aside from you, of course, because yeah, you wrote the book. And then once you have that Proto persona, you start using these attributes to find people who resemble this person. And these people who resemble your Proto persona are going to be your ideal target market. Now, a very good way to do that, and a very good way to find more attributes, is to use Facebook audience insights. Because Facebook has a lot of data on people. We're going to be talking about that in the next few lessons. But let's say you want to target people who are fans of Jack Reacher. And you want to find other attributes. You want to say, people who are fans of Jack Reacher, what else do they like? Where do they hang out? So you could log on to Facebook Insights, Audience Insights, and you're going to find what are the things they like, and I'm going to show you that.
So here's what the Facebook audience insights look like. So to be able to access them, you'll need a Facebook advertiser account. That's free to set up. You don't need to enter credit card details for that. So just set that up. And then you'll find the audience insights right here in the top dashboard. So click on all tools and then audience insights, and you'll get to this page. Now this page is really interesting because it can basically tell you almost everything you'd ever want to know about any audience. So what's an audience? Well, it can be a mailing list, a newsletter list if you already have one, or the people who like your Facebook page. So for example, here I'm going to take a look at people who are connected to, who liked our Reedsy Facebook page. And Facebook's going to tell me a bunch of stuff about them. It's going to tell me that they're 73% women, their age, they're going to tell me what they like in terms of lifestyle. And more importantly, here in the page likes tab, Facebook's going to tell me which other pages they like. So if you scroll down, you've even got an affinity multiplier, which basically says how likely they are to like this other page. So I can see that people who like my page also like all these other pages here. So it's really useful to know, to understand the other interests, likes, and dislikes of your audience. So now we're going to assume that you don't already have a Facebook page, or at least not big enough for these insights to make sense. So we're just going to start from zero. You do know, however, that you've written an espionage thriller, and that a comparable title is the ones by Lee Child. So you're gonna put here in the interest, you're gonna put Lee Child, author, and here you're gonna see all the other pages liked by the fans of Lee Child on Facebook. David Baldacci. So for example, your proto persona now is Jack, who's a super fan of Lee Child, and David Baldacci, and you can say he's male between 35 and 44, married, and working in IT and technical services, and reads espionage thrillers. So it kind of helps you build that proto persona a bit more accurately. And in the future, once you start setting up your ads, it will also help you find other pages and interests to target. So again, it's free to set up an advertiser's account with Facebook, and audience insights can help you a lot while you're writing your book, just as Amazon categories can help you to pinpoint your ideal audience and define your proto persona.
Now, once you have identified the attributes of your target audience, it's great knowledge to have, but you need to put it into practice right now. You need to start hanging out with those people right now, several months before you release your book. Because otherwise, if, let's say, you find the perfect Facebook group that's about espionage thrillers with 20,000 members in it who talk about their favorite books every day. If on the day of your release of your book, you join the group and you say, hey guys, I'm an author, I've got my espionage thriller, they're going to be like, sure, great, spam. Instead, you come in right now, you share with them the books that you're reading right now, you interact with the community, you post comments, you make sure that you log in once a day on that group, you comment, you post something new, interact with that community, you build a relationship there. And at some point, you'll have to mention, it will come in the conversation that you're an author, that you're working on your espionage thriller, and you're going to build interest with those people. And those people are going to be exactly the people you want to reach for your book. So when you release your book, you're going to be able to be like, hey guys, you remember that book that I've been talking about, I was working on? It's released now, and on top of that, I left it discounted for 5 days, so you guys can grab it now. And you're going to have a much, much better response. And by hanging out with those groups as well, that's usually where you're going to find what we call your street team, which is something we're going to be talking about in the next few lessons. So your homework for lesson 1 is simply to sit down, think about and describe your proto persona. I want you to write a full paragraph about who that ideal reader is. And I want you to include stuff like other authors they like, other fictional characters they like, and places where they hang out. It can be Facebook groups, research them. It can be Goodreads groups. Goodreads is an amazing place where readers hang out all the time. So look at Goodreads groups. Even Google Plus communities, some of them are still active. Go look there. Find at least 4 or 5 groups that are active and where your ideal readers hang out, and start interacting with those groups, start posting in there, start commenting, and do it every day. Also research your Amazon categories and genres and decide where you're going to place your book. We're going to talk more about that in our next lesson.